It's our job to solve for the tariffs. It is not our customer's job.
You don't seem to be someone that's really motivated by money.
Our thought was like, let's not waste a bunch of money on marketing, let's just make a really sick product. Expedition is the #1 selling electric cargo bike. The Trike is the #1 selling electric trike. The folding bike here is the #1 selling folding bike and the #1 selling just e-bike, period.
And what are you guys doing in sales?
I won't speak to specifics. Well, actually, it doesn't matter.
What's America's best-selling EV that's not a Tesla? In fact, it's not even a car. This is Lectric, America's best-selling e-bike, sells more units than both Ford and GM's EVs put together, and its founders are still in their 20s.
Lectric is a true underdog to leader story. Its founders recently made the Forbes 30 Under 30 list by selling more EVs than anyone, only behind Tesla Model Y and Model 3.
The single most efficient form of transportation is the bicycle. The most efficient form of motorized transportation is the electric bicycle. We won't compromise on like the bike and the price or the mission because we just keep making up challenges.
Today I'm at Lectric HQ in Arizona to find the secret sauce that two 23-year-olds used to create a 9-figure company in a span of just 6 years.
Make a sick product, sell a bunch of them. By selling a bunch of them, people tell their friends, so you get lower cost marketing. That helps you drive even more sales. That gets you operational leverage, make sick products, and it's this beautiful flywheel.
The company's growth is as amazing as its founder's tenacity, making it the best-selling electric bike company in America over the past 2 years.
Those are my banners. Those are sick. I want to build like a championship, competitive atmosphere, and realistically, I'll never own like an NBA team, but what I do own is an e-bike company, and if I want banners in the rafter, I can have banners in the rafters.
Well,
just like,
you never
and we
know.
do our banner ceremony.
Dream big, you might also own that NBA company.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think I'd be very good at it, but this I am good at.
Just a few years ago, while in college, he managed to build an electric skateboard in his dorm, quickly scaling to sell over $100,000 in units.
So you're in college, 19 years old, obviously have a passion for skateboarding, and you decide to turn it electric. How do you even know how to do that when you're 19 years old?
Well, so it really started because someone flew past me on a boosted board, and I was like, I want one of those. Like, I absolutely need one of those. It was like $1,500. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And so I was like, all right, surely I can like figure out how to do this myself and just like set it up.
Surely you'll just figure that out.
Well, to save money, I will figure out a lot of things.
But his luck quickly ran out.
This was our first time, and really the first time anybody in that segment was doing a lithium polymer battery that small and in that type of setup where it's, you know, skateboards are super bumpy and whatever. And so then the quality and the longevity fell apart, and then it just ended up killing the business.
In 2018, at just 23 years old, Levi and friend/co-founder Robbie DeZiel set to make their own e-bike, but needed a few $1,000s.
I go back to my dad and I'm like, dude, great news. Like, it's not gonna cost $3,000 for an e-bike, but I do need $40,000 in order to like start this, get the initial tooling done. Because when we first started the company, my dad asked for a business proposal for him to invest like the $40,000 and like a business case. And my findings was that in places like the Netherlands, half of all bikes sold were already electric. Europe had shown real signs of this penetration rate of the electric bicycle to the bicycle market. Well, the US was sitting at 2% of all bikes sold were
So you knew
electric.
we were about to take
So I was
off.
like, and I thought of like the American dream of like, we love to go faster. We love to go further. We put a man on the freaking moon. Of course, we're going to want to be able to get on an e-bike.
That's controversial.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, why was the shadow that way? My family didn't come from wealth. And so like $40,000 is like a material ask. And my dad didn't have that readily available. So he actually goes to Wells Fargo and gets a line of credit against the house for like home improvement. He told him he was gonna like redo the roof.
Now fast forward to 2025 and they just released the upgraded version of their best-selling e-bike. I got a chance to ride the XP4 with the whole family in Arizona, and again, unlike anyone else in this space, they improved tons of features to the bike but managed to keep prices the same as before.
So every single component on that bike got better. Actually, let's go get one. When you create a really sick bike like the XP, you sell a bunch of them. And when you sell a bunch of them, everybody wants to work with you. And for example, we used to have like a crummy, just like black and white Texas Instruments display. Like now we were able to to a digital TFT display that we designed in-house. And so you have your modes, but then you have your secondary screen. So now you can see your pedaling cadence, your motor power, your input power. Now you don't have to memorize a bunch of codes to change the settings. Now you have a settings screen here.
It's all super easy.
Right? No one has ever done a display like this at $9.99. Old design of this used a cadence sensor. So as you pedal, it produces a set amount of power. A torque sensor, much more premium, recognizes how hard you're pedaling and then provides power based on your power multiplier in there. So you can still go 28 miles per hour, but it's more intuitive, it's more responsive, but it's more expensive. But again, if you're producing something that everybody wants to be on, suddenly the torque sensor supplier is trying to figure out how to get on your bike. Without a doubt, this is the most expensive $9.99 e-bike on the planet.
The new XP4 keeps the same price but sees improvements in range, handling, and braking. It comes in both standard range and long range variants. The standard gets you a 500 watt rear hub motor with a 10.4 amp hour 48 volt lithium ion battery. This is good for up to 50 miles of range, and it starts at the same price as the older XP 3.0. XP4 long range beefs up the rear hub motor to 750 watts, a 17.5 amp hour battery with up to 85 miles of range, and it starts at $12.99.
I was just like really keen on the idea of like make it as affordable as possible, and like people who do their research will like find you. One thing that people didn't want when they bought a bike was to assemble it. We designed a bike that it shows up to you, you unfold it, you ride. You don't have to go take it in for assembly or watch a 3-hour long video on how to build it. Like it was just ready to roll. Because it was foldable, you also didn't need a bike rack. So if you wanted to take it to that state park or whatever, you can now just throw it in the back of your car. And like Robbie had a 2011 Honda Civic at the time, and the folding dimensions that we designed for was to be able to fit 2 of them in his trunk. That was like the design goal.
Was there anything else even close to that at the time that you could get for that price that folded up that small, had the power, the range, the fat tires? There's nothing else out there?
No, nothing packaged like that or even remotely priced like that. It was, our thought was like, let's not waste a bunch of money on marketing, let's just make a really sick product. And we've essentially have kept that methodology through the creation of the business.
And what are you guys doing in sales?
I won't speak to specifics. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. Like over 200 million a year is like our revenue.
Like that's crazy when you think about it. And this is a short amount of time. Really, this is like 2019-ish started.
Yeah.
It's like mind-blowing. It's like
still
crazy.
Doesn't make sense to me. Expedition is the #1 selling electric cargo bike. The trike is the #1 selling electric trike. The folding bike here is the #1 selling folding bike and the #1 selling just e-bike, period. It's only behind the Tesla Model Y and the Tesla Model 3, and then it's the electric XP. So we're doing over 150,000 of those. Last year, I believe it electrified more Americans than Ford and GM combined, right? So because I think they both did about 70,000. And that thing did over 150,000. We'll do over 150,000 again this year. So think of the economies of scale.
I like how you just kind of rolled off, like, you know. No.
It doesn't make sense. So like you don't think about it too much because it like doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's cool. But it's like you get the economies of scale on something like that compared to when I first started. It's like the leverage I have against suppliers and like everybody wants to be on our bike because it is such a high seller. So we get the best components. Well, a normal company would take that leverage and drive up profits to be larger, higher percentage, or they would take the better components, put it on the bike, and just march the price up because it would make sense. If there's $300 worth of more components on it, it should be $300 more, right? Well, so that is not at all our methodology. We drive the leverage of the operation. Like we were competing, one of our biggest competitors who we now sell 3 or 4 times the amount of e-bikes as them. And they lost to 2, at that time, once we became the #1 seller, 2 27-year-olds who raised a fraction of the money and built a business on a completely different philosophy, which was like providing as much to the customer as possible. Like we're extremely efficient. I'm super proud that my team's only 130-ish people. Our 130 is better than the 800 you have because I can outsell you. I can have better margins, a better product, whatever. and then I take that savings by having more efficiency, make the bike better, make the price lower, sell more units, grow the company even more, because then people are like, dude, this bike is so good. Like, I need not just one, I want to get another one. And so it really drives, people talk about a flywheel, but usually when companies talk about a flywheel, it's total BS. Like for electric, it's actually real, where it's like, make a sick product, sell a bunch of them. By selling a bunch of them, people tell their friends, so you get lower cost marketing. That helps you drive even more sales. That gets you operational leverage, make sick product, for a low price, and it's this beautiful flywheel.
So a lot of times though, when people are starting out their companies though, they just want to sell it for more money. But your philosophy, you're saying, is basically sell more, sell it for less.
Yeah.
So more people want to buy your bike.
Yeah.
It's quality and it's a better deal.
So like we just launched the XP4. In its first 4 weeks of this new product, we still have the 3.0, but it's sold over 10,000 in its first 4 weeks. And it's on pre-order. It's not even in stock, and that many people.
And you kept the price the same, which is kind of crazy right now, because we're in this world now where there's all these tariffs. And I was talking to you earlier about your supply chain, which I'd love to talk about a little bit more, and how you're able to sell it, at those prices. Obviously, you're planning on selling massive amounts of them, because why wouldn't you buy this bike when you can get it, for that price? But you're obviously probably losing some money because of these tariffs, I imagine.
Yeah.
But you're willing to do that because people will want it and you'll sell more.
We're spending a ridiculous amount, on tariffs that we were not planning for 6 months ago, right? The day that was announced, I basically brought in senior leadership. It's our job to solve for the tariffs. It is not our customer's job. It's our job to figure out. So I need every freaking idea on how we can solve for it, where if it's X millions of dollars, I need to find this many millions in savings and how we can solve for it. And a lot of it, we ran through the whole supply chain, applied a lot of pressure and negotiation. Like, we're a very good customer, right? We are never late on a payment. We pay ahead of time. We buy in large quantities. We have great relationships and friendships throughout the supply chain. It's about time that we cash in on some of that, equity. And that's something I learned in my master's in leadership, is like, you build up human equity and capital, because sometimes you have to cash in on it. And so for years, I've been making great friendships with the supply chain and not really asking for too much in return. Now was my moment to cash in on those chips, and everybody was extremely supportive of myself and Electric. So we got help there. We renegotiate our container prices. We renegotiate our shipping rates with like UPS. Everything was renegotiated, but then operational efficiency throughout the company, where it's like, all right, where can we drive more automation? Where can we find savings there? Where are things that are just foolishly costing us money that we can solve for and actually turn it into something that's a bit of a saving? So like, one thing is, our old display would get broken in shipping sometimes. Well, now we created our display to be detachable, so you can just snap it off. It comes in the box separately. Customers see it as a feature where it's like, oh, now I can take my display off when I transport the bike or go into the grocery store and lock my bike up. But for us, it actually is going to save us probably $20,000 in replacement displays for a year, because now we're not having to mail those out because they're getting damaged in shipping anymore, because now it's in its own protected box. So it's like, you got to find a lot of things like that in order to solve for it. All of my competition, every single one of them, increased their price because of tariffs. I'm like, we're holding the line. Like, hell or high water, we are going to hold the line. And like, customers respond very positively to a company that is fighting for them, and very much like, because they can see the competition. The competition will email them and saying, hey, prices are going up like $200. It's like, we send an email and like, hey, we're keeping our prices the same. And then we are able to spend less on marketing because of where our price point is.
It's really hard to believe that you can get this bike for under $1,000.
On our ride, we had the boys on the XP Lite, which starts under $800, weighs less than 50 pounds, and folds to easily fit inside your trunk. And I had the XP4, which is $200 more, and you can add a buddy seat accessory for your little ones. I can tell you firsthand, you're not gonna find another e-bike at these price points that feels, looks, and rides quite like these do.
So what is the master plan?
Well, I think ultimately it all comes down to like our original mission and vision that Rob and I first started with, which was be the greatest urban transportation solution ever. Like when we first made that business pitch to my dad and whatever, it's like, all right, why are we going to keep showing up to work? Whether this works or doesn't work, why are we going to keep showing up? And it was to make the greatest urban transportation solution ever. The single most efficient form of transportation is the bicycle. The most efficient form of motorized transportation is the electric bicycle. So you can electrify the transportation of 200 people with this bike, right? For the batteries and the consumption of the raw materials that one electric truck would require. So it's like, and that may only transport one person from point A to point B. We can actually transport 200 people. So it's a really efficient form of transportation, and that's a really good reason to show up to work.
I did want to also talk to you a little bit about the refurbished program. How does that work?
Well, so we have our scratch and dents, and so maybe a bike showed up to a customer with a scratch or gash or whatever, and it's like, well, this bike is still awesome and perfectly good. So what we do here, and this is the only location we're doing this in Phoenix, that's why you see all these bikes. So when we launched the XP4, at any given time, we have hundreds of bikes in transit on the way to a customer. And so basically a ton of people reached out and were like, hey, can I cancel my order and now actually buy an XP4 instead? So then we took all their bikes back. So these bikes probably have 0 miles on them. Some of them 0 scratches or anything. We call it scratch and dent. But then we're selling them out of our showroom for 40% off. So, but all bikes that are sold out of the showroom are always like 30 or 40% off.
So what is like the best deal you can get right now?
At our showroom, I think you can go down to like $499. You can get e-bikes for sure. Yeah, like when we were closing out the expedition. So that is, that's we were doing dual battery expeditions during that closeout out of the showroom for $599, and that had, what is that? 48 volts, 28 amp hours of battery. So like you couldn't even buy the battery for the price that we were selling them for. So honestly, the reason I started this pricing program, it's not a good margin for us at all. This is more just like one of those things where I would get annoyed like being out and about and not seeing my bike, but I know how many bikes I have out there. But I'd see other people on other companies' bikes and I'm like, all right, I want to take over Phoenix. And so it's been a huge success here. Like we sell a ridiculous amount through the showroom. The reason we can't keep filming in the showroom, even though it's summer and it's blistering hot, there's been a lot of people in the showroom today buying the bikes and everything like that. So it's like, it's a good flow.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video and be sure you're subscribed. We have some incredible videos lined up for the next few weeks.
He gets me the $40,000.
Wait, he just goes and takes out that money. He doesn't have a lot of extra money.
Yeah.
And like with no questions asked, he's like, you're gonna start.
My parents have way too much confidence in myself. Like throughout my life, so when I was 10, I started like my first dog walking business, and like I would walk dogs, but then more neighbors would do it. So then I would hire my friends to also walk the dogs, but I would take a little management fee off of them. And same with lawn mowing and like whatever.
So you've always been like starting businesses, an entrepreneur.
Correct.
So they kind of see that, you know, you probably could do this.
Through high school, I was creating my own jobs. And, you know, there would be periods where like I was car detailing and like I created a mini business for that. And instead of making whatever it was, like $8 an hour to work at Burger King, I'd be making $100 an hour and like whatever. So there was like signs in my early days. So I think that's why my parents had a lot of confidence that like, we just need to bet on this kid and like, hopefully he'll figure it out.
Okay.
And boy, did I not figure it out with this design. So I take that $40,000 and I lost basically all of it. We had our first production run. It didn't go perfectly. And although I was able to get it under $1,000, people didn't want it. And fortunately, people are very vocal about why they don't want it. And we're at like these trade shows and flea markets trying to sell these, and we cannot sell them to save our lives, let alone my dad's investment. We took notes about—
Could your dad at least like ride this?
He did. And he was he enjoyed it quite a bit.
So
but I think he had
$40,000 on an e-bike because he didn't want to spend $3,000.
Right, exactly. No, and like, this is a terrible, terrible move. I go to my dad and I vividly remember this call because it's just, iconic looking back at it. He answers the phone and I said, how'd you like to lose another $10,000? The electric XP is that first bike. That's the bike you can see there.
Okay.
And the reason it's called the XP is because Robbie and I met on Halo 3. You know, on Halo, you earn XP, you know, XP points, and whatever Call of Duty, you earn XP points. And so the reason why the bike is called that is because of
oh my God, my kids are going to love this.
You started with the skateboard company.
When I started the skateboard company, I was 19. And then I started the e-bike company when I was 22 or 23, I think. 23, I think.
So I think that this means that you guys should let us play video games more because it can lead to this.
Because you're gonna find someone smarter than you to help make you look good and make great products with.
But do you feel like?
And I played a lot of video games when no, I'm not good. I'm gonna make your guys' job even harder.
But how do you find that balance? Because with video games, with kids, they definitely don't want to do anything else. Like we always joke, like, have you touched grass today?
Yeah, sure.
Like, have you gone outside? Here you are building something that's like so people go outside.
Sure.
How do you find that balance?
I think my parents struck it well, right? Because I was a kid, I got no allowance, and then they wouldn't just buy us stuff. They're not just buying you things, right? So. But I wasn't allowed to have a job at any point when I was living under my parents' roof. And so if I wanted a video game or I wanted my own Xbox, because my 3 older brothers all had their own Xbox that they went out, got a job and paid for, they're not sharing with me. I want my own Xbox. How can I do that if my parents won't let me get a job, they're not going to buy it for me, and they don't give me an allowance? Well, then I need to create my own job. And so that's how it all fell into place. Is there are things that I wanted because I couldn't just have an Xbox. I also needed a TV. So now I need to go out, create my own job, walking dogs, mowing the lawn, car detailing, whatever it was throughout my life, and then make money, save up, buy said TV, buy said Xbox. Now I need a controller. Now I need whatever. So it's a great taste of adulthood at an early age because now you're spending, you're saving up, you're budgeting, and everything like that. So that was I don't know if it's the right way, but that's what happened for me. You have a bunch of nerdy Easter eggs. We only launch bikes on Tuesdays because that's when video games would be dropped, is Tuesday morning. So that's when we drop our bikes and whatever. But we do a ton of philanthropy work. We deploy millions of dollars towards philanthropy.
$2.3 million in 2023 that you guys donated.
Yep.
Which is
on our launch day of the XP4, we just announced that we're now sponsoring 30 Arizona foster children to full rides at GCU, the school I graduated from. So that covers their tuition, their room and board, but also in the foster care programs, gap is summer housing and summer education, because where do they go in the summer? So we solve for that. So we pay for summer housing and all that stuff.
You don't seem to be someone that's really motivated by money, making the money. Obviously, that's a nice perk, is to be able to do that. You want to be successful, but it does seem like just talking to you and your energy is kind of giving off that you want to do more in your life.
I like having a purpose, and electric is part of the means to do that. There's no thing that I personally spend more money on than philanthropy. And so, electric fully paid for 2 orphanage projects. And these are not small checks. These are, over $500,000 checks each time we do a project like that. I did the project with the Arizona foster children. So it's we invest, and we did a school in Cameroon. That was also a very hefty check.
What advice would you give to young people that are starting out in business that want to have ideas, and they're young, and or even my age, that want to start a business? Where do they start, and what do you wish you would have done differently?
Well, so I just do it, right? And I think part of it is to just surround yourself people who are way better than you. There's a great quote from Taylor Swift, I believe she did it, to Selena Gomez. Yeah, it's not that one, but she basically had the quote of if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. That was the advice she gave Selena at one point. And I can confidently say every room I'm in with my company, I absolutely am not the smartest person. At where we're standing right now, and we have that team over there, they're way smarter than I am. So I found Robbie, right, and brought him in. This wouldn't have happened without him and his knowledge and his skill set. So, and then Robbie goes and recruits a great product team, and they can generate great bikes. So good people should try to work with good people and not accept or tolerate anything less than that. But then ultimately, I think the big thing that has helped drive so much success for electric, there's this quote by Charles Swindoll, and it's a long quote, but I'll summarize it to the point of, life is, 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. And it's this whole idea of like attitude is everything. And so like throughout the early days of electric, and even still today, like we get punched in the mouth all the time, but having this relentless optimism, this positivity, and just like knowing that nothing is going to like truly derail us from our core mission or anything like that. Like you just got to think through a different lens, because it's super easy to like feel like the losses are mounting up or whatever. And that can be a trap. And so I believe attitude is by far the most important thing. This can simulate pedal assist. So we're going to be able to, with this device, we can tell you the hill climbing capability, the torque that it actually outputs. Like some of our competitors advertise like 75, 95 Newton meters of torque, but it's actually registering at like 45 Newton meters of torque. But how can anybody say otherwise unless you have a machine like this? We're the only, so the CPSC has one of these, and then now we have one. We're the only two in the US that have this SCA.
Well, I think about it with
dyno.
like cars too. A lot of times like the range numbers and things they give off are incredibly wrong, but they still advertise it. And some companies overestimate, some underestimate, but it's all over the place. And it's also the same with bikes.
Yeah, especially so many companies in this space are direct to consumer that you really got to just like take a chance, and like you're assuming that someone's being transparent or truthful, but like they're not. So like they can now lean on this information to help drive them on what's the right bike for them. And sometimes electric isn't going to be that right bike, but at least they're going to know what to expect. You have the power to influence, but especially if you are a founder or whatever, CEO in leadership, like you have the power to influence an environment. So like don't let that power go to waste. Like if you have that ability, you should use it. Like for me, I want championship banners and I want to build a really competitive environment. I'm going to do that. If I want, food to be cooked 5 days a week at the company, I'm going to implement that. And we hire a cafeteria chef lady who comes in and does that. Like if I want to shut down the company, like when John Wick 4 came out, or like sometimes Marvel movies, I just shut down the company and rent out a movie theater and we all go see it. Like I'll do that. And it's because I have that ability. And so just don't lose sight, because it's like, I don't want to not have fun where I work. And I don't think they would also not.
But like, what a fun environment that you get to do that every day. You enjoy the people you work with. It seems like everyone here has a good time and loves their job. How do people actually apply? Like if they're watching this, they're like, that's a cool company. I want to work for you guys. Like
electricebikes.com, scroll to the bottom, click on the careers page, boom, join the party.